Welcome to the Irreplaceable Dental Assistant Podcast, brought to you by DAME, Dental Assisting Made Easy. This is a safe space to be mentored, empowered, energized, and equipped. We begin our chat again for today. We're going to be focusing on patient confidentiality. It is imperative that we guard our patients' personal information. That includes name, any information about current or previous address, any bank account information, credit card details, telephone numbers, emails, and other means of personal identification. A patient file may be exclusively electronic, or it may be a paper file. In whatever form, members of the dental team have to be very protective of each patient's information. That means that the patient's information should not be in a place for other patients to view. It also means that team members shouldn't be viewing patient information unless they're doing something specific for that patient. We have to be very careful about sharing patient information. If we have an adult child or a spouse, we have to get permission from that young adult to share information with their parent. Or we have to get permission from one spouse to share information about the other. They have to explicitly say, yes, you have permission to share. Otherwise, it really could become a very sticky situation. And sometimes it's challenging because there are times when you're treating adult kids, but their parents are responsible for their finances. So we have to make sure that all lines of communication are open and that as we share, we're not crossing any lines that we ought not to cross. Because without proper permission, those dental offices in the US could be breaching HIPAA regulations. Let me give you some very common examples. We should not be checking someone's chart to see what they do for a living because, you may be thinking that this person might be a good person to set up with your friend. You shouldn't be calling a patient who is a physician to describe your symptoms because you're not feeling well. You shouldn't be discussing a patient's treatment within the earshot of another patient. And we should not leave a message about treatment with a spouse or a parent unless we've been given specific permission to do so. When we're calling a patient's place of employment, we shouldn't leave a specific message about any appointment. You simply leave your name and your number and you ask that that person return your call. Now, depending on the jurisdiction, the sign-in sheet could be an issue, especially if it allows patients to see what other patients have signed in and when. Now, there are times when we're going to have to provide information to the patient or to a new dentist. That patient has to give you specific information that you document so that you can comfortably furnish copies of their records to the patient or to the new dentist. At the end of the day, people want to be in an environment where they feel that they can trust. And if they feel that you're discussing them with other than dentistry, it could be a problem. If they hear you speaking loudly about somebody else who is a patient, that would be a breach of trust. Because anything that they observe you doing to other patients, they could easily see themselves in that position as well. And, we want to make sure that there are no discussions about patients or their treatment beyond the walls of the dental office. So it should not be a discussion topic around the dining table about a procedure that was done today if you're going to mention the patient's specifics. If you're just speaking in general about an interesting case, that's fine. But once you begin to speak about specifics so that your family could identify the patient, then that would be a no-no. Things become very murky as we move into this age of social media. Before and after photos, you have to get specific permission from the patient to post those. And when you're posting them, sometimes people don't want their faces to be revealed. So a real close-up, just showing the teeth, is not a bad thing. But if you're showing features that would allow someone to identify the person, gets a little blurry, because some patients really don't want you to share anything on social media about them. Also, you have to be mindful that if you are doing a little video clip or something, who is behind you? Who is in the background? Because it's very easy to inadvertently record somebody on a video that you're taking, even with your iPhone, and they may not be aware that they're in the background, and you post it focusing mainly on you and what you're doing, and suddenly it's uploaded and the patient is wondering why his image is uploaded on your Facebook page or your IG. So it's very important to recognize that we have to ensure that anything that we're doing to do with social media or to share with the public, that our patients are very clear about what we're doing with their images. Some people are quite open and it really doesn't matter much to them, and so that's fine. However, permission must be sought. Now, what does permission mean? Is it just asking a quick question and getting a response and saying okay? Maybe. But what is more reliable is getting somebody to sign. Usually it can be on the same form as your medical history or so, when you simply ask the patient permission to share specifics of your case for teaching purposes or something like that. But it must be clear to the patient that you plan to use their images beyond the dental office. Now, I'm a member of a study club, and sometimes we take cases to discuss among ourselves, knocking heads together to see what each person thinks, how they would diagnose and treat the case. And even then, even though it's just among a group of professionals, we still have to ensure that we have permission. Written permission is always the best. So we have to be mindful of that sign-up sheet. In some jurisdictions, it's fine to just put a line through it when the patient shows up. Others, you have to be very crafty about concealing people's names as they sign in, so other people are not aware that they were in the office or are in the office at the time. Patient charts, you need to make sure that they're always in a place where an arbitrary person can't pick them up and look into them. Or if it's an electronic database, you need to make sure that whatever you're keying into the patient's chart, that another patient is not able to see. Having discussions, treatment planning, it has to be in a place where you can't be overheard readily, so that people don't feel as if you're sharing their information. Even at the front desk, you have to be very creative about talking about money and how much is owed, because if someone is shoulder to shoulder beside someone that you're speaking to about their bill, they may feel a little cute about what you're saying to them with somebody beside them. So in our office, we always ask that one person be at the front desk at a time. If you, as the assistant, are ushering the patient to the business area and you see that there's someone at that front desk, then we just generally ask that you usher that patient to be seated and inform the front desk that the patient is waiting, so that once you're finished your discussion with the patient at the front desk and that patient has left, then you can summon the other patient to come. We have to be as discreet as we possibly can, because people get offended very easily, and sometimes they're offended and you have no idea because you're relying on their facial features, and people will smile on their way out the door saying to themselves, I'm never coming back to this place again, and you'd have no idea. You also have to make sure that in the treatment area, when you're discussing the patient's procedures or follow up with the dentist, that it's at a tone that you can't be overheard. Also, there are times when, depending on the dental office, you don't necessarily have doors that close each operatory. Truth is, most times when you're reclined, somebody can't tell who is in the chair and what's being done. But some patients are very specific. They want a private room with the door closed because they don't want anybody to see or have any inclination, any kind of idea about what they're having done. So here's what Stephen Covey says: if you want to be trusted, be trustworthy. And that goes for all of us all the time. If you want to be trusted, be trustworthy. So, confidentiality is the key, or one of the keys, for an irreplaceable dental assistant. You have to be trustworthy, because being trustworthy allows patients the freedom to speak openly about their oral conditions to the dental team. When patients feel as if they can trust us, they usually end up being lifelong patients. And isn't that what we want? Listen, we'll talk again next time. Remember, we're better together.